Hello, class. Part of Module 2 is all about installing and the procedures that you would have to use to install Linux to a real machine, a hardware, or a virtual machine, or what have you. And in the past, we've used virtual machines in class. You would go through the process of installing a couple different distros, seeing how that works, and then maybe after that using them to do lab activities where you learn more about how Unix works once it is installed. I've chosen not to do that this semester because of the nature of things. It's all online. Who knows what kind of machines you have, whether VirtualBox works on whatever you have. Here's the thing, most of it probably would be no problem. It's just there could probably be a significant minority where internet connections, who knows, would disrupt things. So again, Mindtap might not be entirely reliable, but it's a lot more reliable than what could happen if we tried to do that virtual machine installation sort of strategy. So what I'm going to do instead is show you how to install it on, how I'm going to install it on my machine, and then you guys, I would, as an optional activity, it's not going to be graded, it's not required, I would encourage you, however, to find VirtualBox, which is what I'm going to show you how to use, or VMware, or was it Hypervisor, or whatever it is in that Windows version. I've never used that one. So to show you like what's entailed in installing on a virtual machine and running it. Should probably just explain what a virtual machine is. I think most of you know, but a virtual machine is a software emulation of the hardware, pretty much. So like normally you would install your operating system on the hardware, right, on a disk, and it would boot into memory, and then it would then it would do the tasks of an operating system. With a virtual machine, you've got hardware running. In this case, I'm running Windows 10, but inside that I have this application that will create a hardware virtual emulation of hardware, pretends to be hardware, and the software, the operating system, Linux, that I've downloaded, this Fedora 28, it's not going to know the difference. I did pick Fedora 28 because that's what's used in the lessons. We're up to 32 now. Probably would not have made a difference if I picked 32, but since it wasn't too hard to find 28, I just, I'm on the page here. I'm just going to go ahead and use 28. Now I've already got downloaded. I'm going to show you how. I'll click on this one, the one that's just called Live ISO. It'll start downloading. I've already got it downloaded, so I'm going to pause because this can take a while, and then when I come back I'll show you more. Alright, this is what it would look like after, in my downloads folder, after I've finished downloading the ISO. ISO, by the way, stands for International Standards Organization. There is a particular standard, 9660, I think, that is for copying bit by bit images, is what they're called, of, say, an optical disc. So normally in the past, what you would do if you wanted to install Linux on your computer is you would download the image, often a .iso extension, sometimes IMG for image, and then you would burn that to a DVD ROM. Well, in this case, it would be DVD read and write, right? It's not just strictly ROM. But anyway, your computer would see it as a ROM, read-only memory, and it would load that in as the operating system, whether you install it to disk, or in this case, what we have is kind of like a hybrid situation. It's called a Linux Live CD, and the way Linux Live CDs work is that they install the entire image into your RAM, your main memory. Nothing's on disk, so it doesn't change your computer, and it's a way that you can test drive without like ruining, messing up the computer you already have. Everything exists in memory, including like the file directory. So it's not a real file directory in the sense that it doesn't live on a hard disk, or these days a solid state drive or something. It all exists inside of memory, so it's kind of like not real, right? It's real as far as the computer is concerned, though. And then when you boot the computer, turn it off, that's all disappeared. It's ephemeral. So, but it allows you to, to investigate things. Now there's tweaks you can do to this, to where you can have like a persistent part of your real hard drive, where you save some things in between sessions with your live CD. You can maybe have like a little home directory that you save files to, and then the next time you boot the live CD or the DVD into RAM, that hard drive will be there with some like files and stuff you've been working on. There's like a kind of a hybrid you can do, but what you'll typically see though is that they'll allow you to test drive it, try it out, but there'll also be the option right away to install to the hard drive. In this case, we're going to install to a virtual hard drive inside the virtual machine. So it's not going to install to my actual Windows hard drive. That is an option. You can dual boot all kinds of sort of things. You can have a different maybe physical disk you install to and do a boot, but we're not doing anything like that. We're just doing everything virtual. So let me show you how that works. Let me get things out of the way because when I'm making these videos, clicking on the wrong things. But you'll notice though, actually, this ISO, Windows detects it as if it were a DVD. It's right there. So it assigns it to drive letter F. That can come, note that comes in useful depending on which drive letter you've got. And then I'm going to start VirtualBox by Oracle. And I've got a machine already. I'm gonna go ahead and recreate this. I've had a couple of takes of this video, so I want to start at the beginning. So what you do is click on New, which you might have seen me do, but I didn't say I was doing it. It's grayed out up there now, but it's a blue starburst. Type in some name for this so you know what machine this is. I'm going to call it Fedora 28 because that's what it is. And the rest of this, depending on defaults you'll have, if these are already selected, Fedora should be in there, so make sure that's selected, make sure it's Linux. And then this directory, this is just a default directory. I don't bother changing this because I don't have any reason to, so I'm going to leave it at that. Click Next. I recommend making at least, almost everybody's going to have a computer, even this kind of computer that's kind of old has enough memory to make it at least 2 gig of memory, which is 2048 megabytes. And then take the default here and the default here for Fedora, and the default here dynamically allocated. So it's actually going to, you say how big the disk is, but that's kind of like the maximum size. It will only be as big as it needs to be. And it's that second part I was talking about, how big it could be. I would make this 10 for Fedora. That's the recommendation. I don't know if it really matters, but I went ahead and changed it to 10. Then create. And I would recommend, once you've created this virtual machine, now consider this as that you've just created the hardware. There's no operating system on it. There's no Fedora. It says Fedora, but there's no Fedora on it yet. I would recommend going to your settings, and first I would go to System and Processor. If you've got more than one CPU, make sure, go to the top of the green here, whatever that is. At least 2 if you've got more than one. It makes things a little easier. Now some of the CPUs will actually, this is saying how many hardware CPUs you're going to devote to this thing. Some of them are needed for your own computer, so don't take them all up. And there's some other things you can do with like your network and stuff, but the only other thing I would recommend maybe is to go here under storage, and you see where it says empty. This is for like your DVD ROM. Consider this that if it were a real machine, you would be putting a DVD ROM into the drive, the DVD ROM drive. It's empty right now, so we need to put a disk in there. So click on that, go over here to this little disk image, and pick. There's a couple things you do. I think this would probably work, and that would work. Host drive F is what it was before, but just in case, click choose disk file and actually pick the one where you've downloaded it, and click open. And then at this point, click OK, and then you're ready to start the machine, to power it on. So metaphorically speaking, what we just did again is to put that DVD ROM in the drive, close it, and then we're going to press the button to turn the machine on. If you didn't do it the way I just told you, there's usually a dialog that comes up to pick, and this is what it's doing now. So it's unpredictable. I don't understand how it decides to do what it does, but in this case, we know it's this ISO, so I'm going to choose that one and then click start. and you know you've done the right thing if this comes up. See, it's the Workstation Live 28, so it's going to load a live Linux CD with Fedora Workstation 28 on it. Go ahead and hit enter, and this could take a while, so I'm going to pause, and when it's ready to go to the next step, I will come back. If I can get my mouse back, hold on, I'll just wait then. Let's see if my Alt-P works. Okay, so after you wait, this will be what boots up. What you've got actually is a Linux Live CD version operating system running in the background of this pop-up window here. This pop-up window will come up the first time you boot. It's the try Fedora means keep this as a live CD and, you know, have fun, play around with it. It's not actually going to install to this fake machine that we just made, this Fedora 28 that's running over there you see on the left. Or alternatively, I recommend just to go ahead and click install to hard drive, which also could take a while, so we'll be pausing. Earlier, I couldn't get the pause because one of the drawbacks of these virtual machines versus a host is that sometimes it can get kind of clunky about which thing has possession of your hardware. In this case, it was a mouse. It wouldn't let go of it. So, and then I hit Alt-P, which did something in the boot up process, but it looks like no harm was done. Anyway, so I'm going to select install to hard drive. And this could take a second. So I don't know how long this is going to take actually, because, you know, this is virtual stuff running on top of virtual hardware, right, on top of real hardware. So there's several layers. Sometimes it can be sluggish. So I'm going to pause. All right, about 2 seconds after I paused, it advanced. There was some progress. So I think this is probably very intuitive now. It used to be less intuitive, but, you know, if there's anybody who doesn't speak English in here, you might pick, you know, one of these other language sets. But most of us are going to pick English United States. Click continue. A US keyboard, by the way, too, like the standard keyboard. You could have changed that if you wanted to. Now this can be a little, in my experience so far, a little bit like, what do you do here? So what I found is if you just go to installation destination and then click done, it will go ahead and select this 10 gigabyte partition that we created earlier. Remember when we increased it from 8 to 10. Basically that's the selection already. You just have to kind of confirm it by going into it and then clicking done, and then this will take a second to update. If something can go wrong, this is like one of the main places it'll go wrong, but we'll cross our fingers. Okay, it looks like this is okay, and then you can just begin installation. And on a virtual machine, this can take quite a while, so I'm going to pause, and when it's finished installing, I'll come back. Okay, as you can see, well, installation complete, and then it went on to something else. So hopefully this won't take too long. I don't know, initial RAM file system, something like that. I guess we'll go on pause again. I jumped too early. What I want to show you next is how you like boot back up again into the actual fake real fake operating system once it's been installed on your virtual disk in your virtual machine. So we'll take another pause here. All right, that didn't take too much longer. Now you see it's installed, ready to use. Go ahead and reboot to start using it. So I'm going to quit here. Everything takes forever on here because of the virtual nature of it. This is stuff you'll learn later once you start interacting with it, whether it's like, you know, in a simulation in MindTap or whether you install it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go bring up a terminal window and do things the way I know how to do it. So you'll see different ways for doing this. There's probably a button. I'm not a Fedora user. I'm Debian and Ubuntu, so I'm not sure where the little power off thing is, but I'll do it the old-fashioned way that I learned a long time ago, which is shutdown -R. Do I want to do R? I'll do R. And now. So this is saying shut down for reboot. When are you going to want to do this shutdown? I don't want to do it right now. So we'll pause. Do we want to pause? Okay, it did turn out we wanted to pause. So what I recommend doing instead of doing shutdown is actually go to machine and do ACPI shutdown, or just like closing the window, because what you need to do at some point, and I did this in a different take, but anyway, what you want to do is you want to go back to your storage and you want to make this empty again. So you do that by clicking here and it'll say remove disk from virtual drive, make it to where this is empty, because if you remember, this is putting that disk into the storage in quotes is kind of equivalent to putting a DVD-ROM in the tray and booting. So if you reboot and it's still in there, it's just going to go back to the live CD, and you don't want that to happen. You want it to go to the actual hard drive, the fake hard drive, right, that's in the virtual machine, and boot from that. So if you do that, if you remove that and then just start again by clicking on the start button over here, it's show now, right, because it's already running, then it should boot up into Fedora. And so there's some like, you know, initial like setting things up and like stuff. I want to skip this. This is up to you. I want to actually just, you know, put my name in here. Way back in the day, back at UT, because it was 8 characters, my username was Nicholso. So I'm kind of used to that. I'm going to use that. Now, make up a password. This is just going to be password because I'll probably just delete this machine anyway. And of course, it should warn you. It may not will it let you? Will it let you? Yeah, it'll let you. Okay. Then start using Fedora and you're set. So this is after an edit if it's jumpy. But one of the things you might want to do right away that's kind of just uncomfortable for you is to change your resolution, your desktop size, window size, whatever you want to call it. So in most Linux distributions, if you right click on the desktop, it gives you access to like changing your display settings. And what you're going to notice, and this one's kind of wonky, and you'll have this like off to the side here where you can't see the whole thing. So what you'll discover is you can move it to be within the window. And what you want to do is pick something that's reasonable for your desktop. And actually, I don't remember what mine is. I want to say this one's usually fairly reliable. So we'll pick that. Click apply. If it looks okay, you know, obviously keep the changes. That's better than what it was. So I went ahead and kept the changes on that one. It might not be ideal. You can experiment with it in your own machines to see, you know, what ends up being what's best for you. Now, don't get confused by this. This bar up here is VirtualBox stuff, and my brain just automatically wants to click it. The actual Linux operating system that's running on the virtual machine is all from here down. And you can hide it. There's different settings you can do. You can experiment with it. But at this point, you can just start using Linux. Unix. Yeah, this one actually needs to scroll down a little bit. So it's cut off from some of the stuff down at the bottom here. But yeah, at this point, it's fully like loaded onto your system, and you can go ahead and just start using it. When I say system, I mean your VirtualBox virtual machine that you created. You should even have internet. It'll pipe the internet in from your actual machine, so you can do stuff like browse the web and stuff. And most of the stuff it looks like in Fedora is accessed through this activities. But like I said, it's cutting some stuff off the bottom. I'll have to. Here we go. We're gonna use these scroll bars on the VirtualBox, and I'll show you what I mean. So that brings up Chrome. But in the meantime, let's Firefox, not Chrome. Let me click on that again. So sometimes you can do things like this. At some point, you should be able to, if you know what the dimensions of your screen are and everything, you can get it to where it's just like as if you were really using the machine on actual hardware. You can get it set up to your liking. So in order to do things here, there should be on all these distributions, there should be a terminal application. Yeah, Firefox has to get in the way. just to show you though, I'm going to go ahead and do this right now. I feel like I'm wasting time at this point, but now that I've got it installed, I kind of want to like sort of show how to do things. So you need a keyboard that doesn't chatter like mine does. There we go. And you can see, like if you actually have, well, you know, let's do CNN because that's like showing the newspaper, right? In a kidnapping situation or whatever. Like I'm trying to think of those scenarios where that happens. You got to prove that you're actually at that date. So here we go. This is today's news at CNN.com. I'm no particular endorsement. It's just like easy to type. Actually, not my favorite to be honest. But so that shows it's a little slow because again, it's virtual. It's several layers of software and several layers of software on top of actual hardware. I think that's all I'll show for now. Where's the terminal actually? It's like it disappeared. So we get at our programs, these dots to show applications down here. And that says frequent. Let's do all. I'm not seeing a terminal. There was a terminal in the live version, but there's not much frequent so far that it's learned to do. Let's see. Is there any way else to get to a terminal? Not VirtualBox, not Evolution. Well, this is frustrating because the terminal is like your most useful thing. I'm going to do this. Search for it. Duh. Okay, there's terminal. And like I said, since I don't know where the buttons are, I'm just going to shut down. Actually, sudo is always safe. Normally, when you install like this, your user that you created, your account with when you installed, should be in the sudoers list. We'll test it out and see. There's certain things that only administrators can do, like turn the computer off or shut it down, I should say. So you might have to use sudo to do that. And so it looks like I am in the sudoers list is what it's called. It's super user do is what it stands for. So sometimes you hear people say sudo or sudo or whatever. It's actually sudo. You're doing something as the super user. Anyway, password was my password because again, this is not a real computer that I'm worried about being secure on, but you should always pick a good password. I'm not telling you to pick sloppy ones, right? And so shutdown -H and now means shut down, halt the computer, don't reboot, and do it right now. I think that's enough for this lesson. This lesson is 22 minutes long, so it's actually not too bad. I'll upload this and I'll probably lecture over the PowerPoints maybe, or like the chapter information like I did last time. And that should be pretty much it for this module. I'll see you soon, talk to you soon. You'll listen to me soon, however you want to think about it.